It's the Infinite Podcast. Go tell your friends. It's the Infinite Podcast. My God, it never ends. It's the Infinite Podcast with Rob and Clark the Kid.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Project Infinite Podcast, a podcast covering the infinite and ever-expanding multiverse of fandom. For movies, comics, TV shows, video games, we got you covered. A little bit of everything today. I'm Rob. I'm here, as always, with Court. Court, we're doing a fun topic again today.
Yeah, we love the topics.
Yeah.
2 for 2 on the weeks and topics. I love it.
Yeah, me too. So, obviously, Agatha... all along, I keep thinking back to like the Coven of Chaos thing, but it's Agatha All Along is coming out in 2 weeks from now. Yeah. So we thought, obviously, next week. I'm jumping on next week's topic. We're going to talk about WandaVision because we never properly talked about it ever on this podcast because we started this after WandaVision was already a thing.
That's when we were in contract negotiations for this podcast. We didn't know what was up.
Yeah, so next week we're going to talk about WandaVision, but this week, in the spirit of Agatha All Along, we're going to be talking about our favorite villain to hero turns across all types of media, video games, movies, TV shows. Just a fun topic that we're just going to volley back and forth on some of our favorites. We got some good ones. We got some good ones cooked up. So look forward to that. But first, we do have some news, starting with... I can't believe I'm doing this. Minecraft. So we got a trailer for the Minecraft movie.
No good.
I don't like it. I don't like it. I again, we're going down this path of these video game adaptations of why are we adapting things into live action specifically. That, I mean, Minecraft more than any game, just, there's no story. It's literally just freedom incarnate. Like, it's whatever the user wants it to be. I don't see a point in storyboarding a Minecraft movie.
So I'm always on the fence about that point because I do see where you're coming from of like, this IP does not have plot. However, Fallout has plot, but I feel like Fallout's very free-ranged. You know what I mean? So... you need a special type of writer. I think the issue here is tone. That's my problem with this.
Yeah,
this just seems like they don't know what type of movie they were going in to make. And I don't know what Jason Momoa is doing here. I don't know what he's doing here.
Me either. It's like they're trying to do with Jason Momoa, and that's what Jumanji tried to do with The Rock.
Sure.
Where they're having him play against type a little bit. Where The Rock is obviously in Jumanji, he's built like The Rock, but he's inhabited by the body of like this nerdy, scared teenager. So that's how he's acting. And it feels like they're going for something similar here. And it just, I don't know, it just doesn't land. And then Jack Black is playing Steve from Minecraft, who's like, I guess of all the Minecraft characters, he is the character. He's, he's Steve. He's Steve Minecraft. But this movie looks like it's all over the place. And it just looks like it's destined for oblivion, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think it still might perform a little bit because obviously it's going to be wide release. It's Minecraft. On top of that, like it's
kids love Minecraft. Yeah,
kids do love Minecraft. Like I do see potential in this of being like a fun, dumb little movie that comes out and like no harm, no foul. I just have a fear there's going to be a lot of harm.
And I mean, to that point, like there's always a chance that like we're aged out of this and like we're just not the target. Like we're not the demo for this. And
I just mean as a movie, if you want to get technical, it doesn't look great.
I mean, even for like a kids movie, it doesn't look great. And that's I think that's more to your point about the tone. Like it doesn't exactly read like a kids movie to me.
Sure.
I mean,
the opening line, yeah.
Yeah, what the hell she says. So it's like that's not really indicative of like a children's movie tone. Right. So I don't know. Like it just feels like they're making this movie and they're making it like just not knowing who it's for. And that's always like my refrain on the show is like, who is this for?
Right.
And I don't know. I don't know who this is for. So I don't know. I'm not overly optimistic. Speaking of things that I'm cautiously, but also not overly optimistic for, the Mandalorian and Grogu. So Signourney Weaver has joined the cast.
Who do you think she's playing?
Who knows?
John Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, it could be literally. It's going to be somebody that was written for Sigourney Weaver, presumably.
Yeah. I mean, it's very encoded of what they did with her for the Defenders. Yeah. Just you sign all-time great actor Sigourney Weaver. You're just like, here's this role that has nothing to do with anything. But
yeah, I mean, funny enough, the last really not last thing she was in, but like one of the things that she's been in recently that didn't do that was Avatar.
Right.
Like it feels like she's actually playing a character instead of just playing Sigourney Weaver.
Right.
Playing two characters in Avatar, actually.
Yep.
But yeah, I can't imagine she's going to be I mean, she'll be someone of consequence, but I don't think it'll be like, we're not going to be able to predict it. She's going to be someone that, like you said, like your Defender's point, like she's going to be someone that was written, Sigourney Weaver, you know, this role is, we got you on, but now it almost feels like we casted you and now we're giving you the role.
Right. Right. It's like, and Hollywood does that. It's just like, they'll like the character and they'll think of somebody in their mind and then like, they'll know the actor and they'll try to write around the actor. Usually when Sigourney Weaver gets cast nowadays, i.e. like this is not barring Avatar because she already had been in that franchise before. Like something like that seems very much of a, you know, we know what this is. we know who this is for. This is for you, Sigourney. Like we're gonna write this for you in the way that you're encoded. It's funny that we talk about that and like obviously we're gonna talk about Terminator jumping the gun a little bit later, but how in that era like how important Sigourney Weaver was to movies. Like, yeah,
she's one of the all-time great.
Yeah, because I was thinking about like her and Linda Hamilton and Terminator, like how these are two women that like revolutionized the genres that they were, the sci-fi genre they were in. Like they are two, and I think we talked about it as well. We had an episode where we talked about some of our favorite woman characters in movies and TV, and we immediately like Linda Hamilton and Sigourney Weaver are always at the top of that list.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Alien, you talk about Ghostbusters, like she's a staple of that kind of genre, and,
right?
You know, she's still cooking to this day, so which is really really great,
right?
Speaking of people that are still doing things, so Ocean's 14 is officially happening. This news hit, I think, today, or yesterday, I can't remember, but so far, Brad Pitt and George Clooney are both going to return, and the director will be Edward Berger, who you may know as the director of All Quiet on the Western Front, which got a lot of awards buzz when it came out.
Yeah, and, won a decent amount at the Oscars, too.
And, I mean, the Ocean's movies have always been stellar. They're some of the best heist films. And, I mean, I guess this was only a matter of time, I suppose. I mean, in an era of returning to, you know, past things. And
and I see it too as I know they just did that movie Wolves. Like I have a feeling that on that set they were like, we couldn't do it again, right? I genuinely think that's exactly how the conversation went. They were like, we couldn't do this, right? Like the two of us couldn't do this, and they were like, wait a minute, maybe we can do this again.
Yeah, and I mean we talked about Oceans way long ago when we were talking before the Suicide Squad came out.
Oh yeah, best ensembles,
and I mean the Oceans franchise is I mean, just littered with movie stars. So I'd be curious to see if anyone else comes back.
Well, that's exactly what I was about to ask. I want two actors that you want on this new heist team.
Like new or like returning?
Yeah, we can do at all time, but I mean,
I think
let's do this. One like I'm not obviously not established, but I mean one like classic actor, like somebody that's been in Hollywood for years, and then somebody from this new guard that we've been getting.
Well, I mean, I would want to see Matt Damon come back.
That would be fun. Okay.
And then I mean, I think Glenn Powell is tailor-made for this for an Ocean's movie. Like he just has that, you know, he has it. Like that's what these Ocean's casts always had. Like
charisma.
Every single one of them had like it. When you're talking about Clooney, Damon, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Bernie Mac,
Don Cheadle,
Julia Roberts, like all these Ocean's actors always had like it. So I feel like you know Glenn Powell fits that bill, especially
after Hitman. Like that was kind of his audition to be in this Ocean's movies if he so choose. But Glenn Powell is a very very busy individual. He's working with Edgar Wright.
Is.
Obviously Hitman just came out, just got a lot of buzz for him. He's probably going to be the main character with Miles Teller for Top Gun 3. So he's got work for his work. You have to. So an actor that's already been that's been around for a while. I mean, I feel like it would be too insane not to get Paul Rudd into there. I feel like that would be a fun addition to there too. And then Austin Butler would work in there too. It's the same
100%.
Glenn Powell 100% remixed. Like, I feel like he's the one that talks to the lady, like to the bartender, to distract everybody. Like that's his type. Like I feel like that would be fun.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great pick. And honestly, someone that hasn't been in one that always felt like he always should have been, Leo.
Yeah. I wonder if I don't even know how to say this without sounding disrespectful, but I feel like for Leo it was beneath him to do an Ocean's movie.
Yeah.
Even though Brad Pitt was there. So
and George Clooney. But
I
just feel like that type of genre just suits him.
Sure.
I mean, Gosling is another one that I feel like would fit in.
Yeah, he would be. If he was younger, I feel like it would have worked, but I think he's at that point where he's like, I need to be top billed in whatever, either equal top billed or the top billed in whatever I do. He is the, even to Glenn Powell's point, he is the, I am a movie star now, maybe, but he is the movie star.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Zendaya would be fun in there too.
Ooh, yeah.
Florence Pugh probably would be phenomenal in an Ocean's movie.
Margot Robbie too.
Yep.
Would be great. But yeah, I think that's fun.
Anya Taylor-Joy probably would be incredible in an Ocean's movie.
Yeah. Yep. 100. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. Like, I think, take a crack at one of these, properties. You're gonna bring the actors back.
Maybe a sell for the movie is like they try to get their crew back, like the OG crew, and then this young crew comes along that's just so efficient and so fun.
Yeah,
and you get your Austin Butlers, your Florence Pughs, your Zendayas around.
Like time has passed you by.
Right, like you guys.
Future's now, old man. Yeah. Get some.
Paul Rudd's still on the young team.
We got some DC news. So first and foremost, I didn't have this in there, but I guess we could pull it together. But Joker is getting some early reviews, and they're not great.
Yeah. See, I think this started 2 years ago. Venice Film Festival's going on right now. It's that time of year. I love this. The best time of year. The fall season into the winter, right into the Oscar season. This is where you're going to get all your film festivals going on, all your awards season chatter. So, obviously Joker 1 performed $1 billion well and, Oscar worthy well, which is great. Won two Oscars, right? Score and Best Actor. So, you're going into a second one with the same team. Like, you got to feel confident. You must have to, and you do have to. So, obviously, you go to Venice Film Festival. 11-minute standing ovation. Now, here's the thing. There was another movie that I know got very, very good reviews, and it got a 6-minute standing ovation. So this is my thing. The longer the standing ovation, the worse the movie.
It's a great,
It was last year was the big one where people were trying to decipher the amount of the standing ovation and how good the movie was going to be.
Yeah.
You can't go to 7 minutes, but if you're under 5 minutes, but if you're over 11 minutes, something's wrong.
Yeah. This is interesting, right? I think it's... I mean, who knows? At the end of the day, who knows if this movie is going to be as middling as the reviews are saying? But at the same time, like we've kind of talked about this before, like in an era where now, like back then,
2019
when Joker came out, like it was kind of this kind of like shock the system, kind of comic book property. But now, like,
and again, that was also in the era where the MCU just finished, for lack of a better term. Like, that was not the end of the MCU, but that was like, they did it. Like, comic book movies were comic booky, and then this comic book movie at the end of the year was just so not comic booky.
Yeah.
So. And
then you got, and then the Batman came out, which was obviously super grounded. And then just a litany of other things that just have grounded the genre. And I don't know if this movie is suffering from that because, like, if this is just going to be Joker again, I just don't think people are going to take to it.
And then also
second time around,
you add the musical element on top of that too.
Yeah, there could be a tonal conflict that obviously we haven't seen because the movie's not out yet. But like, I can imagine, it might be tonally confusing.
Sure,
like, musicals are hard to pull off.
Yeah,
especially if the director doesn't believe his movie's a musical.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like where's the vision? Like, what's the through line of this vision? So, and then obviously, there's stigma around Lady Gaga as well. Like, some people don't think she can act. I disagree with that point.
I also disagree with that.
But I mean, we'll see. This is going to be an interesting one. I hope that people are being tough on it now because, it's the Venice Film Festival. But then Coppola released Megalopolis too, and I'm like, I don't know who to believe anymore.
Right.
Apparently that movie is just, like, there's no words to describe that movie. Like, it is just it's anarchy, I've heard. So.
Right. With AI generated quotes.
Right.
which isn't great. Speaking of the Batman, we got a little tiny bit of sliver of detail from Matt Reeves about what the tone of the second movie is going to be and where it could go in the future. He said this is basically going to be another mystery film, much like the first film was, and that he isn't overly interested in ever diving into the more fantastical elements of the Batman universe, which I don't think people should be surprised by, but for some reason are.
I just think it's because the limbo of where he was going to fit in, and then I liked in the Batman in the first one how it was like, obviously this is very, 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 very grounded, but there was still a sliver of like, maybe he could do like a Clayface. So I mean that confirms like this is gonna be like Nolan's Dark, like there's no superpowers, nothing like that. Like these are just crime thrillers, which is great. Some of the best Batman stories are crime thrillers.
I mean, it probably sets up, it either sets up probably one of two things. It's either setting up Court of Owls or it's setting up Hush.
Yep.
I would say those are probably the two prevailing plots right now, if it's going to be another mystery film.
Yeah.
And obviously the first one had the Hush kind of elements to it.
Well, I told you when that first movie came out, I said this might be one of the greatest setups to do Hush in the second one, because what you're going to do is you're going to make the Hush reporter. That's the point. That reporter that, was killed, not inadvertently, but, that Thomas Wayne had killed or taken care of. That's Hush's father. So, and then a kid that grew up with Bruce Wayne, like that was friends with Bruce when he was a kid. Like, what a great way to start the second one. And then if you can find a way to do this like ultimate conspiracy in Gotham, like you did in the first one, but make it Court of Owls, you really can start to play around with some things too. Yep. You add a Robin into there too. You add Dick Grayson into there. Like, you still can get your quote unquote comic booky elements, but I think they're doing a good job of towing the line. And I mean, that film was just. It's funny because I still was like, this movie's like a 9 out of 10 when it came out. That movie keeps aging like fine wine. Even after each, it is insane how dangerously good that movie is. Yeah,
and also it's been seemingly confirmed that he won't be showing up in the Penguin series.
Yeah, but Bruce Wayne might. I still am holding that thing where Bruce is going to show up himself.
Yeah, interesting.
Getting that I think in the same day as Agatha, or it's like Agatha's on the 18th,
something
Penguin's
like that,
on the 19th.
Yeah. And some Green Lantern news. So Josh Brolin has been reportedly offered the role of Hal Jordan. And if Josh Brolin, for some reasons, decides he doesn't want to do it, Ewan McGregor and Matthew McConaughey are also on the short list. So obviously we're going for a older Hal Jordan, obviously.
I'm so interested. I'm so interested. I saw that and like got giddy because I wasn't shocked at all. And I kind of know, I have a feeling I know what his sell is. I think a big piece of what he's going to want his DCU to look like, his legacy is going to be a big through line. And I can get it from the fact, I mean, it's my point that I always said about the DCEU that you should have made Ezra Miller Wally West instead of Barry Allen. Like, I think that James Gunn's going to do that with some of the characters. Like, we might start with Wally West. Like, how many times have we seen Barry Allen since 2014? Like, we've seen a lot of him. Like, obviously, to his help, too, the Arrowverse didn't use Wally West overtly too many times. Like, he was in a couple seasons of The Flash. Right. That was it. Like, maybe you start with Wally West and you do the thing where, they knew each other before. And, like, what that's going to help, too, is really prop up Superman. Like, make Superman, like, he came in late to this, but, like, everybody follows him when he gets there because of the symbol of hope he is. I think that's such an interesting point. So, I'm all in. I know some people, and, I talked about it before we hopped on, too. People's brains of Hal Jordan is not from a comic sense. Or, like, it's such a Ryan Reynolds sense. So, like, that's the only version of Hal Jordan they think exists. It's, like, this brass, like, fly boy that's like, somewhat charismatic, somewhat a jerk, which he is. He still is. And even after what I'm about to say, he still is. But if you go post Green Lantern Rebirth, Hal Jordan after he was the Spectre, that's where I think Brolin is perfect for something like that. Yeah. Like this, like I've seen some stuff. I was dead and I was the Spectre while I was dead. Like I've seen things you people couldn't believe. Shout out Blade Runner. But like, I like this mentor figure type of role, especially for somebody like Hal Jordan. Like, don't run away from the fact that he was that like, he was your kind of like, you know, your Iceman / Hangman from the Top Gun series. Like, he was like that jerk that used to fly around, and then he got this Green Lantern ring, he learned responsibility, and then he died, and then he, you know, he committed some absolute atrocities, and then he died, and then he came back to life. Like, put Brolin in that role where he's like, I'm going to teach you, Jon Stewart, who's going to be the main character of this show, like, I'm going to teach you how to not do what I did. But also, I think this Lantern show is about to be absolutely insane. True detective inspired, like, murder mystery. What you're gonna, if you want to read, what you're gonna read is you're gonna go through the Jeff Johns run. I think they're gonna do Blackest Night. That's what I think this whole, because they said there's like a conspiracy on Earth. Like, the conspiracy on Earth is, I think they find Necron, like they find, and then next thing you know, the Black Lantern rings are literally taking everything over. Like, that would be insane if they just start with some, like, there's just some murders around, and like, you know, the space cops on Earth or the space cops, like, oh, it's just like, the Guardians, like, can you handle this? Like, this is nothing big. Can you handle this? It's like, oh, the universe is about to end if we don't take care of this. Like, I feel like that long-term storytelling, you inject it into the background of some of the movies, and like, the Lantern show just blows up after that. I feel like that's so cool. And that's why McConaughey's on the short list. There's no way they weren't going to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a super interesting idea, and like Hal Jordan's one of those characters that, you know, in live action obviously hasn't had a lot of play, so I feel like you can kind of just put him wherever you want on the timeline, and people just buy in. Like, obviously he's a beloved character, but at the same time, like, it's kind of like the Tony Stark thing with Iron Man. Like, you could kind of play a little bit with what you want to do.
And like, I think about this too. Is he beloved, or is the stigma of Hal Jordan beloved because of what happened in the movie with the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern?
Yeah, there's that, and then obviously the animated stuff, Hal Jordan too, when he's kicking around is also like kind of brash.
Yeah, and that's like, it's cool, and that's pre it's pre Parallax, pre him, like, and that's the thing about like that's the best reveal of, like, you know, Parallax and like, Hal Jordan did those things. Like, obviously he was possessed, but like, he still did those things on impulse. So, yeah, you know, him destroying, like, Coast City getting destroyed, and like him having to come back, like, that Green Lantern Rebirth is one of my favorite comics ever. Like, I think that was one of the first comics I read when I got back into reading comics. Like, it's just so uplifting for Hal too, because it's like, him coming back, like, that panel of him coming back, it's like, that's what it should feel like. That's what looking at a prime version of a character should look like. So I just like this kind of cross between, you know, and I think James Gunn said it. He said that for his movies, there's not going to be like a streamline where, like, you know, we know from the MCU, like, and, you know, it's kind of why people like Edgar Wright left, and like how our theory of like Chloe Zhao is like, I want to do these things. They're like, just relax, like, pump the brakes a little bit. Like, they wanted that uniformity to an extent through things. So I think James Gunn probably wants the opposite. He's probably like, I'm going to get directors who are known for these things and let them just operate. Like, I will weave this the way I need to weave it. And then whatever the team up movies are, we'll address when it gets there. But I want you guys to play around with your characters however you deem fit, how tonally you deem fit. And then I will worry about getting them back to where they need to.
Yep. Yeah, totally.
Who do you want to play Jon Stewart? Because that's probably going to be super duper important for this.
It depends, I guess, what do you want him to, like, if you want him to be younger or if you want him to be a little bit older. I guess that would be the first question.
I think I want him to be younger. If they're going to do this whole, like, because in the comics, Jon and Hal aren't too much off in age, but for this, it seems like they want the age gap on purpose. Like, they want this definitive.
I mean, if you want to do someone that's relatively young,
not like super young.
No, I know.
Yeah, right.
But like 30s, like late 20s, early 30s. I mean, I would give John Boyega a call.
I think he would do it too. I think he would do it. And I think the sell is, especially after, you know,
Star Wars.
Yep, Star Wars, and his phenomenal performance, and then Clone Tyrone. Like, I feel like he'd be ready to step back into like a fandom role, but like, also the sell for him is like, we're going to do some cinema in here too. Like, this isn't just going to be like the same thing that you did before. Like, you're going to get to actually do the acting in this.
Yep.
And we always talk about it. The progression of John Boyega's acting from episode 7 to episode 9, it is disgusting that they didn't just make him one of the main characters of that thing.
Yeah.
I love that John Boyega pick. I feel like that he would be, and especially with Brolin, I feel like he would be good. I think Desmond Idris would be incredible for something like that. And my brain is thinking in a true detective sense of the fact of it, too. I feel like Desmond Idris he'd be like this little overtly cocky, but like, he's smart on top of that, too.
Uh-huh.
I feel like that will play well with Brolin's like, dude, I was you. Like, I was you. I was running and gunning, like, I got this power, I got this ring, and I was like, I can do whatever the heck I want. It's like, and it's not that simple. And again, I like this whole thing of like, just this small conspiracy, like, there's a couple dead bodies that are like going around, like, and the next thing you know, like, the Black Lanterns are all coming back. Like, I feel like that would be great. Probably a good first Justice League movie if you want to do something different.
Sure.
Fits James Gunn's mold. And what's it called? I know they're doing Swamp Thing, right?
Supposedly, yeah.
Swamp Thing's important to the Blackest Night story too. So I have a feeling that's what he's gonna do. I think he wants to do Blackest Night.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. Desmond Idris is a good pick too for Jon Stewart. But I just think, I think you could easily pitch this to John Boyega and just be like, hey, obviously the last thing didn't go your way, but now we want to give you like your thing, and you're going to let Josh Brolin's going to kind of be like your figurative and literal mentor.
And Josh Brolin, especially after Dune, like I read the Dune photo book that they did for Dune 2, and just him talking about like the young talent, like Josh Brolin seems like such a giving actor, and like I think that's what they probably want for this role. Like, and this is why I love what direction they're going for the DCU, and especially after James Gunn's comments a few days ago, like this is gonna be like tonally whatever the story needs. It's not gonna be we need to fit something. It's like whatever your story needs. Like whoever the director that like do what you need to do as long as it's quality. Do what you need to do.
Yep, 100%. And the last bit of news I got, so George R. R. Martin has come out, and then since deleted, his relatively scathing criticism of some elements of season 2 of The House of the Dragon and what he feels is going to happen in season 3 and 4. He just had some issues with some changes that were made, some characters that were omitted. HBO has defended Ryan Condal and company, basically saying, like, we believe in the vision, like, we respect George Martin's work, yada, yada, yada. George Martin was critical mostly of a couple things. One, mostly revolving around the first episode of the season, the Blood and Cheese episode, in which the major change from Fire and Blood, his story is that in the book, Blood and Cheese obviously gives Helena the choice of a child to have executed. Helena offers her own life in place of this, and then Blood and Cheese essentially make the decision for her, which is the change from the show where she offers them a necklace, and then eventually relents on one of the children, and then the other is the omission of Aegon's second son, Maelor Targaryen, from the show entirely, and George Martin likened it to the butterfly effect, essentially, like Maelor as a toddler, obviously at the events of Blood and Cheese, but then progresses to a more important character later on. And then he basically said season 3 and 4 has potentially more toxic changes in store from the source material. But then, like I said, the blog post has since been deleted. So interesting, to say the least. It feels like he might be getting a little bit of like season 8 Thrones PTSD, potentially.
I thought of, it's funny, I actually thought about that too. I thought about that when we were talking about it before, of like, there's probably fear that comes with it, and like, it's known that he didn't have Thrones, like, this 8 was freestyling.
6, 7, and 8 mostly were freestyling.
Right, but like, see how there's dichotomy to that, because 6 and 7 are phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then 8 is 8.
Yeah.
So it's funny. This doesn't have to do with anything, but I love when people are like, 8's the worst thing that I've ever seen in my life. And then I'm like, season 8 of Game of Thrones, some creators would murder to have quality like that.
Yeah.
Most of them would. So,
yeah.
But I digress. Anyway, I mean, on George R. R's front, how I'm kind of fallen is, it's tough when you make the thing and you have to give it away. It's like giving away a child. Like, it's like, He
said that in the past, too. I think he's actually said that exact thing about, like, it's kind of like giving up a child, in a sense, like letting someone else adapt your work.
Right. And you have to, there's a level of trust that you need to have. And I mean, I know George Lucas probably feels that sometimes. Like, he's probably watched some Star Wars and just like, He didn't do that for Andor, though. And you know what's funny? I know George watched Andor, and he was just like, yeah, they finally get that this is actually political.
Right.
Anyway, I don't know how... this is a tough one because, like, you know, you want to be on the creator side, but, like, how old is George now?
I think he's 82 or 81.
See, I don't want to be that, like, ageist, but, you know, part of this could be, like... Don't do this thing. Don't change anything. Don't adapt anything to be different. Like, dude, if you're not the sole writer of this, like, you made the decision. It's not up to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, we want your input. Like, you are the man that made this possible.
Yeah.
However, you're not directly on the show as one of the head writers. You're just not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like, you know, it's great that obviously they gave him some input. And I know he was kind of in the writer's room with the director Ryan Condal, the showrunner Ryan Condal.
And that should be, look at the respect that Ryan's giving you. Like, a lot of people probably wouldn't do that, of like, be like, we're going to do our own thing. We, like, you did your part. Like, and
at the end of the day too, like, George Martin he's a writer's writer. Right. So like, and he's a fantasy writer on top of that.
Oh,
so like,
yep.
You know, I'm 90% sure there are probably, I mean, I know for sure there are many things in Game of Thrones that he wanted to probably have in there, and probably a lot of things in House of the Dragon that he wants to have in there, but the reality is, like, writing for TV and writing for you know, writing books are two different things. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, look, I'm not going to begrudge him because he's 90 million times the writer I could ever hope to be, but a lot of the Thrones episodes that were penned by George R. R. Martin are among the kind of clunkiest. You know, if you go through his writing credits on the show, his episodes often feel very exposition-y, and that's because he's a writer's writer who doesn't write for TV. So I feel like there's an element of that too, where like he just sits back and is like, well, why did they put this in? Why did they put this in? Well, you know, they probably because they don't have plans to expand on it. Like, you know, for example, Aegon's second son, Baelor, like, they're probably never going to touch upon it because I feel like the show is destined probably to just end after the dance ends, like after the Civil War is over. I think that's pretty much when the show ends. So, I mean, that's going to be the end of it. So, you know, I'm of two minds about it. We talk all the time about how great it is having the creators on board when you're developing an adaptation. But at the same time, like, you also gotta, as the creator, also got to understand that sometimes things are going to happen that you might not necessarily be on board with. And I think that's kind of where we're at.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. So speaking of that, let's, like I said, in the spirit of Agatha all along, we are going to talk about some of our favorite villain to hero turns, to be TBD on if this is going to in fact happen to Agatha Harkness. I don't particularly foresee it, but it is a fun idea.
Right.
I don't think she's gonna ever walk the path of, like, you know, well, obviously we're gonna talk about Loki, so I don't think she's ever gonna walk that path. But you know, I think she will probably end this. Hopefully, maybe not even hopefully. Like maybe she will end the show with a more nuanced perspective on her powers.
Yeah. Or she won't.
Or she won't.
Or she won't. We don't know for sure.
So yeah, we're just gonna spitball and throw a couple of these back and forth, and I'll let you start.
Yeah, and I mean, what a phenomenal idea as well too. I think this is really cool in the sense that, you know, let's think about this kind of from a logical perspective. Like, writing's fun. It's so cool, and like this idea that you can take this absolutely villainous, horrible person, and like, the best part about this in the episode idea is it's the humanity. Like, at the end of the day, we're all, you know, humans or humanoid, and especially when you're doing the storytelling. So the idea, and, you know, let's just start with, you know, we'll start with something that's a little bit more, you know, simple. Let's start with Yondu. Like, Yondu was this, you know, ravager, this pirate, this cosmic pirate that was, you know,
didn't care about anybody
or anything, only crime. And then, you know, as subsequent pieces of Guardians media would come out, like, you learn that, like, Yondu actually did care a little bit, and that's the humanity piece. Like, he was doing these horrible, terrible, egregious things, but he still was, like, a person at the end of the day. And, you know, Yondu's big on honor and respect. And, you know, once he got those things, we see how he was. And, like, even beyond honor and respect, it's the right thing to do. And we see how you get there in Guardians too. And, like, how informed Peter was from Yondu. Like, it's funny how much Peter did for Yondu. And it's like, it's not like he's your dad, like your father. He's like, he wasn't, but he was your daddy. Like, he was. And
it's one of the best lines in the entire MCU.
If anybody's ever nervous about what James Gunn's going to do in the DCU, just go think about the things, lines like that, throwaways like that. Like, you know, it's part Michael Rooker's performance, but it's the writing on top of that. It's just the understanding of, hey, it's such fulfillment. Well, you're going to make a point about it. It's just that redemption. It's such a human thing to want to be better. And it's just, you know, I can be better. I mean, I'll spoil it now. A-Train's on this list. It's a very recent one, but A-Train's like a perfect example of this, of like the horrible, terrible things. Like A-Train says it. He's like, the way that kid looked at me is better than any of the things that I've ever done for Vought this whole time, because that was real. Like that was, yeah. That kid looked at me like I was a superhero. Like that line is it's intentional. Like, it's simple, but it's intentional. Like, he looked at, like, that's what you're supposed to be, but, like, he actually looked at me like I was a superhero.
Yeah. Yeah, Yondu's a great one, too. And, I mean, when you think about the fact that he gets excommunicated by the Ravagers because, you know, Stallone's character says it.
Yeah.
It's still crazy that Stallone's in a Guardians movie, but...
Two Guardians
movies. But he says it, like, Ravagers don't deal in kids. So, like, even right. The Ravagers made Yondu out to be a villain. And then you obviously later find out that he didn't end up doing what he did with Quill, and then, yeah, I mean, it just all comes on home with the, you know, he may have been your father, boy, when he wasn't your daddy.
Yep.
Is he cool? Hell yeah, he's cool.
Mm-hmm. I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
And yeah, and he establishes that fun little, you know, relationship with Groot and Rocket. Him and Rocket have a really great heart-to-heart.
Yeah.
You know, when they're locked up by the rogue Ravagers. Yeah, that's a great. Yondu's a great first choice. I think I'm gonna come out swinging.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna go right to Jaime Lannister. Jaime Lannister is a litmus test for how scummy can I make this character and still have you impacted by his redemption arc.
Yep.
When we meet Jaime Lannister in season 1 of Game of Thrones, he is this cocky. You know, people always make the joke that he looks like the prince from Shrek. This cocky, clean cut, just scum. You just don't like him. He's just, you hate his guts. You want to wring his little neck. And, you know, and nothing that happens in the first couple seasons of Game of Thrones makes you like him anymore. Right. He killed the Mad King. He killed Aerys Targaryen. He stabbed him in the back. So he's getting shit for that. Mm-hmm. He betrayed his oath as a member of the Kingsguard. He sleeps with his sister.
Mm-hmm.
Incest.
No good.
Not on.
No good.
We don't like that. He pushes Bran out the window in the pilot of Game of Thrones, the first episode.
Right.
The things we do for love. Pushes Bran out the window. So he cripples Bran. What else does he do? He attacks Ned Stark in the Strings of King's Landing, and you know, you could tell he's ready to kill Robert Baratheon. Just wants his guts dead, sprawled throughout the city. He's this cocky, arrogant, doesn't care about anyone other than his sister. But even in the early seasons of Game of Thrones, there's this little bit there to him. He cares about Tyrion first and foremost.
Right. Yep. That's such a good point. It's not a small thing, but it is a little bit of a subtle
What do you mean small?
Come on, man. You know what I mean.
He cares about Tyrion. So there's a tiny bit of a tether there. Like a little bit, right? A little bit of a tether there that like there's something there. Then, you know, another point when you kind of see a little bit of it is he's confronted by Ned in the throne room. Not confronted, but like Ned gets to King's Landing. Jaime's in the throne room and Ned's there and he's just like, you Kingslayer, you prick. Mm-hmm. I hate your guts. And Jaime's like, dude, I saved everyone by doing what I did.
Yep.
Like your father and brother were burned alive. Like I not avenged them, but like, and Ned's like, is that what you tell yourself? Like that you did what you did for my family? Like you broke an oath. Like that's what you did.
Right.
And Jaime's like, oh, fuck. Like, so it's like he wants to justify the slaying of the Mad King so badly, but everywhere he turns, Kingslayer, Oathbreaker, and then he's fighting this war against Robb Stark. He gets captured by Robb Stark, and again he's back to being a little prick. He's just twisting a knife in Catelyn Stark whenever they talk. He's like, your husband got his head chopped off, and your son is also going to be dead soon. Like, you suck, basically. And then eventually he strikes this deal with Catelyn Stark to return to King's Landing in exchange for Sansa and Arya, which is also a lie because Arya is long gone from King's Landing at this point. But of course, Catelyn doesn't know that, so she sends Jaime to be escorted to King's Landing by Brienne of Tarth.
Right.
And then they are confronted by the Boltons, who are bannermen of House Stark. In the ruckus, Jaime Lannister loses his hand.
Right.
And then so begins the redemption of Jaime Lannister, because he's lost his identity, which is this pristine swordsman. He's unmatched. He's peerless, and now he has lost his dominant hand, and he can no longer fight. He's no longer the knight he was. The Boltons make him wear his severed hand around his neck as they bring him back to the Dreadfort. And as he is housed by the Boltons, he and Brienne share this scene together in the tub where he just lets the guard down completely, because he hears the word one too many times, about breaking his oath, because Brienne is this knight that's all about oath and all about, you gotta honor your word, and you broke that word when you stabbed Aerys Targaryen in the back. And Jaime just goes, like, you have basically no idea that decision. Like, my father had stormed King's Landing, and the Mad King's only orders were for me to bring my father's head to him. And then he turned to his pyromancer and said, burn them all. Like, he was going to level the city with wildfire and burn them all, he kept saying over and over again. And what would you have done? Like, oath keeper, like, what would you have done in my position? And that's when you finally start to see it. And then he ends up rescuing Brienne from a bear. And it's kind of on after that. Like, he gets back to King's Landing, he reunites with Cersei, things really aren't the same between them, and you start to see this turn in him. Obviously, he tries to strike a deal for Tyrion's life during Tyrion's trial, and he was going to succeed in that, except Tyrion obviously felt like no matter what Jaime promised, it was always going to be Tywin's final say. So Tyrion obviously demands the trial by combat, which kind of screws Jaime's plans of rescuing Tyrion. And then, ultimately what this results in is he forsakes Cersei to go fight with Jon and Daenerys up north, after he sees Daenerys in the open field with the dragons, and he's like, none of this matters. None of this matters. Like, she's gonna kill us all, but if I don't go north and help defend the kingdom, like the kingdom, not just King's Landing, we all die anyway. And Cersei labels him basically a traitor. Unfortunately, season 8, he backpedals, goes back to Cersei. They die together. I ultimately don't think that's what's going to happen in the books. My long-standing theory on the books is we're going to go down this redemption path, and he will ultimately do like a Kingslayer redux and have to slay Cersei out of the good of the realm, except this time people will recognize him as a hero. Right. But that's just me theory crafting. Right. And then, the one moment that sticks out with Jaime is he's kind of being poked by Grand Maester Qyburn, basically saying, Jaime Lannister, like, how many men have you killed? Like, 10, 20, countless. And Jaime goes, countless has a nice ring to it. And then Qyburn goes, and how many lives have you saved? And he's expecting, like, got him. Kingslayer, you prick, you don't care. You don't save lives, you end them. And Jaime goes, 500,000. He goes, without even a beat, Jaime answers, and he says 500,000. He goes, it's the population of King's Landing. And you're like, oof. Like, he really just, he did the right thing. Yeah. And he knows he did the right thing. And he's been chastised his entire life for doing the right thing. And then he goes through this transformation of experience and comes out the other end more noble. Right. It's compelling. Yep.
It's great long-term writing. I love long-term writing. I love when long-term writing pays off as well, too. And, one of my favorite things to think about in terms of character work, because obviously this is also what we want to do, it's not that simple.
Yep.
And that's the greatest characters you'll ever find will be that idea. It's not that simple. It's not that simple if Jaime's just this, incest driven, like perfect looking, like son of the heir, like, or son to like the heir of. It doesn't work like that. It's not that simple. He's a person, and people are complicated, and that's the beauty of this episode is like showing the complications of these villains and how, humanity oftentimes wins out. And, the next one that we can pull from is kind of the counter to the humanity pulls out, but it's also like the adaptation of, seeing the good of people can do. And that's the T-800. And I mean, this is a little bit more of like a meta thing for the T-800 and the idea from which you get to Terminator 1 to Terminator 2. But the trailer spoiled it. Obviously in 91, the trailer spoiled this, but if you did not see this trailer, and you go into Terminator 2 and you see the heel turn, and it's not even a heel turn, it's one of the best reveals in movie history of get down, and you're like, wait a second. And it's the crafting of the first act of the movie too, because they still present the T-800 as like, as the bad guy. He's mowing through town, he gets back to he's back in the past, he's just like, he seems menacing again. And you're like, oh shoot, like
he's back.
He's come to kill John again, and like, it's gonna happen again. Like, how's Kid John gonna escape any of this? And he's just like, get down, and you're like, wait a minute, no shot. Like, he's a good guy this time. Like that.
We built a better Terminator.
Yeah, we built a better Terminator, and I mean, obviously you have the T-1000. Like, I always forget his name. Peacemaker's daddy is what we'll call him. But,
yeah.
He's like. He's so soft-spoken, and he goes to people. He's like, you haven't seen John Connor, have you? You haven't seen him around? Like
Robert Patrick.
Yeah. It's just like, you haven't seen John Connor anywhere, right? Like, he's charismatic. He's like a guy just a normal cop looking, and then he's like they get to the interaction. You're like, all right, like it's on. Like, we'll see what happens. Maybe they both want John, and then he's like, no, you sent me here. Like, I'm here to protect you. Like, Terminator 2, I watched it about maybe 2-3 weeks ago. That is one of the best action movies you will ever find on this planet. And that will never, ever change. And a lot of it is character work. That's why, like, the action itself is, I mean, it's absurdly good. And it will stand up, it'll hold up. The visual effects will stand up and hold up. And that's crazy for a movie from 91, but it's Linda Hamilton's turn in that movie, but it's all how it's so informed by the T-800 too. It's all kind of reactionary towards him, and it's like, what I love about it is like, again, it's not that simple. It's not that simple if the T-800 comes back. He's just a good guy. It's not that simple. Like, he doesn't know John, whatever orders he gives, like, the T-800 will follow. Like, also, like, Linda Hamilton's not immediately the perfect person either. She's not this great. Like, she's ready to kill Miles Dyson. Like, she's ready to murder him not in cold blood, like, to save the human race. But who knows? Like, a big part of that movie is the predestination versus free will. Like, and he begs for his life. He says, like, I won't. Like, I promise. Like, I won't do it. And she's like, I can't. I can't take this risk. Like, I can't risk you. Like, I've seen it. Like, I've seen the future. You will incinerate this planet. Like, I've seen it. Like, man, what a phenomenal movie. But like I said, that reveal of the T-800 is just, it is second to none. Like, it's such a great way. And like, I love how it's movie separated too. So like, you're going into the movie like, oh, all right, Arnold's back is one of the best villains ever. And you're like, no, he's actually the hero this time.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the best ways, it's become a trope since, but Terminator 2 kind of pigeon. Like, if you're gonna take your villain from your first movie and make him a hero, how do you instantly do that? Make a bigger villain, like a more, and literally in this case, like the T-1000 is a more advanced Terminator. So like, if you want to make Arnold kind of fight from underneath, you have to create a character that is more powerful, faster than he is, which is brilliant. Which is why you introduce the T-1000 is make Arnold, make the T-800 the underdog.
And it's kind of allegorical too, because it's like the humanity versus technology. Like, humans obviously cannot hold up. Like, in a fist fight against the Terminator, you'd be immediately murdered. And I like how they kind of play that for Arnold too. Like, they show Art, like in the first, like Art, like he cuts his arm open to show Miles, like, look, like, you did it. Like, you actually did the thing that you were trying to do.
Yeah.
And like, how the T-1000 always adapts back, like he can adapt back to looking human whenever he needs to. Like I feel like that's like it shows the the humanity of the Terminator, which I guess is oxymoronic in a way, but I love the dichotomy between the two of them of like how the T-800 is essentially reverting back to such like how human of a machine.
Yeah, it's a great one. I think I'm gonna go to the video game realm now. At this point, I'm gonna go to a little game called Red Dead Redemption 2, and I'm gonna go with Arthur Morgan. Obviously, with the caveat, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a decision-driven narrative, in the sense that there is a low honor version of Arthur and a high honor version of Arthur. I have decided, and I think the gaming community at large would agree, that the high honor version of Arthur Morgan is the quote-unquote canonical version, because it just makes sense. It just makes sense for the story, that he would start Red Dead 2 as he's part of an outlaw gang. Arthur is essentially the ace in the hole of the Vanderlyn gang, right? Whenever you need something done, Arthur's the one that gets it done. And most notably, the writing on that game is so good, man.
It is. That is some of the best. What Red Dead 2 does so well is it presents itself as this like cool game. You know what I mean? Like the first, like it presents itself as like I want to be a cowboy. Like this is this cool like. I'm a gunslinger from the Old West, and then you start to get into that story, and you're like, oh, life is something. Yeah, and I mean, and what I mean about the writing is pretty early on in the game, you get sent on this innocuous mission where you have to basically collect debt from a character named Thomas Downs, and you don't think anything of it. He's sick, obviously, like the man is sick, and it's presented in a way that like you're supposed to view Arthur as this heartless person, and you're not supposed to feel particularly good about it. You beat up this sick man to collect the debt. That debt is like, in the grand scope of things, is not a lot of money, but and then you go on this wild journey that is Red Dead Redemption 2. I mean, I'm not gonna go beat for beat what happens, but essentially, Arthur gets tuberculosis. Yeah,
and you're like as the player, you're like, how did that happen? What? And then you get thrown all the way back to that innocuous debt collecting mission, and then lo and behold, sick Thomas Downs had TB, and he coughs blood on Arthur, and at a random nonsense moment of the game, and then you're like, wait a second.
It's why it's so incredible is, especially in a game that's like that, your Grand Theft Autos, your Red Dead Redemption, your super, super open worlds, it immediately puts a clock. Like, there's a clock that immediately goes onto it, and you're like, he has this amount of time to become a human being. Like, this is all he's got left. I think that's it's such an interesting way to kind of, unravel the intricacies that are Arthur Morgan. Again, this is going to be it's the theme of this, it's the theme. It's like, it's not that simple. Like, it's not that simple that he's just this, like I said, this Old West gunslinger that like will kill for money and like will rob anybody. It's not that simple. Like, and again, you get introduced to his wife. Like, you get introduced to like, the family that he could have had. And, it starts to break down to the point of like, while Arthur's he's a person, like he was a person that just like, what's the line he gives? Like, I'm in a bad way. Like I've seen some stuff, man.
And then he ultimately reconciling with his mortality, he decides to kind of try to make amends through John Marston, in the sense that like he sees John as this young guy who got swept in this, and now John's in prison. He's been apparently abandoned by Dutch.
Yep.
So Arthur takes it upon himself to rescue John. He realizes eventually how far gone Dutch becomes.
Yeah.
Micah gets in Dutch's head about the traitor. People die, and Arthur essentially says like, hey man, like I ain't got time in this world, but like I can set John up. Like I can set John up for the future.
It's always funny, and the 3 points we made, it's congruent through all three of. There's always a bigger fish until somebody builds a bigger bomb. Whatever way you want to say it, like for whatever bad that there is, there's evil. Like there's actual evil that's afoot. Like in this situation, it's Dutch. Like Dutch is like
Dutch and Micah. Yeah,
they truthfully do not care about anybody. Like they will do whatever they need to get ahead, even if that's at the sacrifice of who you thought was your brother. Arthur, no, it's not. Like, I will do anything I need to do. I will lie when I need to. Like, I will kill when I need to. Like, Arthur's is... There's a hint of morality in Arthur's doings. Like, there's no morality for there's personal gain. Like, same thing for Cersei against Jaime. Like, even to the end, Cersei would, like, a power is power. Like, I will do what I must. Like, and then again for the T-800, like, there's a bigger, badder version of me out there. And, like, I will do, what I need, but I will also learn, like, it's the vision line for the T-800. Like, humans are odd, but, like, there's grace in their failings. Like,
yeah. And it culminates in for Arthur, not culminates, but one of the final missions you do is you go back to the Downs house, find out, and Arthur finds out Thomas Downs passed many, many moons ago, and his wife is just like, what are you here to, like, collect another debt? Like, and Arthur's like, no, ma'am, like, I'm here to give you this money. And she's like, why are you doing this? And he just goes, cause, I felt like I should. And then he just goes, I'm sorry, ma'am. And that line is just like, it's 3 words, but it hits so hard. Like, cause you literally return to the literal scene of the crime, basically. And Arthur just says, I'm sorry, ma'am. Yeah. And then you go, obviously Arthur's last ride is one of the most memorable sequences in all of gaming. When they basically play back all these voice lines from your journey, right. Arthur's journey. And then obviously the high honor version of events, you're confronted by Micah as you're trying to escape with John with the money. Arthur leaves John the money. Micah kills John on Arthur dies. Micah doesn't directly kill him, but he does die. John buries him on like a hilltop. And then
you get to build a house as John.
You get to build a house as John. And then, I mean, the ultimate tragedy of Arthur's sacrifice for John is ultimately what happens to John in Red Dead Redemption. Getting pulled back into the outlaw life on behest of the FBI to hunt down Dutch, and then the FBI turns on John and kills him. So, unfortunately, like, the tragic part for Arthur is that his sacrifice gave John, the opportunity to raise a family, but ultimately John also lost his life to the life that Arthur was trying to get him away from.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. I want to talk about Magnus. Magnus, please. I want to talk about Magneto, because he is the definition out of all these points. This is going to be the first one of, the idea of he was never bad, but it's the line that he throws to him in X-Men First Class, which was such a brilliant comic book movie about, I've been at the mercy of men following orders my whole life, like, and then going to X-Men 97, like, never again. Like,
never again.
I have seen the absolute horrors that humanity would have. But at this point, I guess this is a little bit more X-Men 97 encoded, but, I've seen everything. I've seen because of my religion, I've seen people murdered. I've seen because of my race, people murdered. I've seen people because of my mutation, people murdered just to be murdered. Like, Magneto had every right to want to be as radicalized as he was.
How many more of your bones will pave the way to Xavier's future?
Episode 2, we talked about it.
You're like, wait, is he right?
Episode 1 is, like, cool as heck, And then you get to episode 2 and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. So I guess this is a little bit more, not the fact that it's, like, more X-Men 97 encoded. It's more of, like, how good X-Men 97 is, and, like, thinking about, like, how well it understands Magneto as a character and as a person.
Even the Singer trilogy,
Yeah, yep.
understood it.
Yep.
To the point where you could, when you threw out the name Magneto, I'm like, but shit, in Days of Future Past, he makes the heroic sacrifice.
Yeah, he does. Yep.
Like, Magneto's the one who closes the door behind him.
Yep.
To keep Wolverine and company alive.
But in the same movie as his younger self, like, what a better villain to hero. Like, he's ready to kill the X-Men for what he needs. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, he has done horrible, terrible things. Like, he is the villain. He's plotted against the X-Men how many times? He has his brotherhood of evil mutants. Like, that's Magneto. But it's it's that piece of what he's seen. It's the piece of, he's seen true evil, and Magneto is not true evil. He will never be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great one. Where do I want to go now with this? You know what? We got to talk about Damien Dark. I don't care.
Yeah, let's have some fun for a little bit.
We got to talk about Damien Dark.
Just wait for our Arrowverse retrospective. That's gonna be like a month-long, week-by-week thing.
Yeah,
you have to break it up into like 5 parts.
Yeah. Damien Dark. 20% character, 80% Neil McDonough.
Yeah.
I guess you could say about this character. Arrow season 4, he shows up, and it's not great. We've litigated Arrow season 4 in the past. He is kind of just generic magic-y villain guy who wants to destroy the world. Mm-hmm. But there's a certain charisma and a certain charm there.
Did the charisma save him on this one?
And then they decide, like they do with all, to quote Tyrion Lannister, to quote Tyrion, they take the cripples, bastards, and broken things of the Arrowverse and put them in Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then
they make them good.
Well, they wait a bit, because in season 2 of Legends of Tomorrow, they bring
the villain.
They bring Damien Dark back as a member of the what were they? Masters of Evil?
The Legion of Doom.
Legion of Doom. Yep. So it's him, Malcolm Merlin.
Not to be confused with the Legion of Boom.
Him, Malcolm Merlin, Reverse Flash. They lose. Spoiler alert. And then he returns in season 4.
Was it season 4?
I can't remember.
I thought it was later than that.
Eventually he comes back and he becomes a good guy.
But why does he become a good guy?
Because he loves his daughter.
Because he loves his daughter. And again, how human.
His Nora.
His Nora
doll.
Yeah. How human of him.
Who Nora starts out more evil than Damien Dark.
Yeah. I'm in a bad way.
And then she meets Brandon Routh.
Mm-hmm.
In real life. In real life and on the show.
Right. They are together, which is phenomenal. I love that.
And yeah, Damien Dark eventually lives for his daughter. He sacrifices himself for his daughter to the point where he becomes Barry Allen's moral conscience. In season 6 in the crossover episode of the final season of The Flash.
I don't understand. Let's not even go there.
You Damien Dark. Why are you giving me sound moral advice right now?
This doesn't make any sense, but I'm doing it because it's my job.
Shout out Neil McDonough.
Yeah, he's just having fun.
Oh, he's having a blast. We talk again. We the refrain that we talk about constantly on this show when actors are involved in things that may not be the best. He understood the assignment.
Yeah,
he understood the assignment, and then he realized that he could get away with a lot of Neil McDonough isms.
Yeah.
And it's pretty great.
It is pretty great.
He like once he got into that legend sphere, and then they were just like, "Are you Damien Dark anymore, or are you just Neil McDonough in a trench coat?" And he's like, "Both." And they're like, "All right."
Yeah.
So like once he got outside of Arrow season 4, like the character got way more tolerable.
Yeah.
He just didn't fit
because he didn't fit Arrow, but he fit Legends like a like a glove.
Yeah, it was tremendous. So Damien Dark.
I might have to rewatch Legends because Legends is the most unhinged, incredible, weird show I've ever seen.
But also hits you where it hurts sometimes.
It does. Oof.
Yeah,
I'm telling you. I'm telling you, when we decide when the Arrowverse needs like a full, because to talk about it as like a whole, whenever we do this 5-hour-long episode where we actually bring all the stars on,
yeah,
you don't understand. That Arrowverse, it was special.
I mean, I don't want to assign you one for your next, but do you want to just talk Captain Cold now?
Yeah, we're already here. I mean, who better than Captain Cold to talk about a villain to hero? And I mean, again,
true villain to hero.
And I mean, he was just but again, his whole thing too, it's kind of like the Magneto point of my past defined me. My past is the reason that I'm here. I am villainous because of the things that I went through. He was abused as a kid, the trauma that he went through. And I say what you will, the Flash and Legends did a good job about talking about that for Captain Cold. Talking about especially once you get to season 2, for Captain Cold, or season 2 or season 3?
Season 2.
I think it is 2. Yeah. The mid-season finale on Christmas. But yeah, I think
Merry
they just
Christmas.
do. Yeah. Merry Christmas. You're out of marshmallows. I'm going to murder you. But yeah, I mean, they do such a good job. And I mean, a lot of this goes to Wentworth Miller too.
Yes.
It's just again, you start Arrows or you start Flash season 1, and you're like, this is just a cackling TV show, corny villain, and then you're like, that's my favorite part about the Arrowverse. Like, you get there and you're like, oh, this is stupid fun, and then you're like, wait a second, wait a minute. Am I intrigued?
Am I invested in Captain Cold?
In Captain Cold? Heatwave arc, question mark?
Whoop, whoop. You're the Prison Break guys from Prison Break. Genius bit of casting, by the way.
Even Rip Hunter, like, you start with Rip Hunter and you're like, he's this cool British guy with is that a laser gun? And then you get deeper into the season, you're like, this is kind of sad. Oh no, bro.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously they bring again, cripples, bastards, and broken things. Mm-hmm. They bring Captain Cold onto Legends, where the hero arc hits fourth year, and he becomes along with Katie Lotz' Sarah Lance. They're essentially the two protagonists, right? As much as they wanted to make Hawkman and Hawkgirl a thing, and it didn't happen. Unfortunately for Hawkman and Hawkgirl.
No. Unfortunately for Hawkman. Hawkgirl was like, it is what it is.
The Legends team realized pretty early on that Sarah and Snart were the main characters, almost to the detriment because they tried to make them a thing.
Mm-hmm. No good.
No good.
No good.
And
dear.
Oh dear. And we almost went down a dangerous path there. But we didn't. Yeah, and then, like I said, Legends Season 1 kind of kicks Snart's heroism turned into overdrive. And obviously there's this whole through line of Legends Season 1 of like, you guys are destined, you're on fate's time, essentially. And it culminates with Captain Cold's iconic line when he sacrifices himself. Yeah. He sacrifices himself. Who would have thought? Who'd have thought Captain Cold would have done that?
He would have found a way out. Anything.
Yeah, he's in the fusion core and he...
What's it with fusion cores?
And Heatwave's like, start, you idiot. Like, get out of there. I mean, Heatwave, obviously, villain to hero.
Goes on,
But, and then Snart looks, there are no strings on me. And then he gets incinerated and you're like, you felt it. Legends has a way of doing that. And it ultimately culminates in when the Legends get back to the modern day and Barry, the Flash, the hero, literally asks them, like, where's Snart? Like, what happened? And then, I think it's the Atom kind of gives him a look, and Barry's like, what happened? Mm-hmm. And Routh says, like, he died a hero. Mm-hmm. And Barry goes, a legend. And I'm like, oh! That's that writing they'd be talking about. So Snart's a great choice.
Yeah.
And he's come back in variations.
Yeah.
I hate fire. Where did I want to go next with one? Fast and Furious?
Don't do it.
I'm doing it. I'm talking about Deckard Shaw, damn it. Fast and Furious, a franchise littered with villain to hero turns. Probably the most popular one is Deckard Shaw. I flirted with Hobbs, but Hobbs isn't really a villain.
No,
he's an antagonist.
Right.
But he's not a villain.
Right.
He's not a bad guy. He's just the Rock.
Yeah. I guess my point about we're going to do another movie. Did I just call it Fast and Furious a movie? They were movies before.
But yeah, Deckard Shaw is we don't quite know how he got onto the heroism side. We don't really know.
No, he just showed up and just was protecting Vin Diesel's baby.
So it's kind of, I mean, it's flimsy, but all things in the Fast and Furious universe are flimsy. And again, this is kind of like the Damien Dark point. Like it's carried by the charisma of Jason Statham.
Yep.
When you're just like on board, like you were the transporter. Like,
it's right. Maybe you are a hero. Maybe.
Like I instantly buy Jason Statham as a Cockney British good guy.
Right.
Like you have villainous features, but you're a hero at heart.
Right.
Which is essentially Deckard Shaw in a nutshell.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say about Deckard Shaw.
That's it.
He's Jason Statham.
Yeah.
Oi.
Hey, man.
He's British.
Oh, Billy Butcher reverse arc?
He was beating that guy up in Fast X in a duffel bag.
Yeah, he was.
Or in a heavy bag.
That was so crazy.
Remember when he reconciled with Han?
Yeah.
When he killed Han?
Yeah.
But he didn't because Han was a hologram the whole time.
I hate everything.
Kurt Russell was behind it.
That Fast and Furious franchise is nuts. Remember when Alan Ritchson was in it?
Just make him kiss. I don't understand.
Oh, dude, listen, Hollywood. Hollywood, you're on the phone with a genius. Give Alan Ritchson and Jason Momoa the relationship. And then kill Alan Ritchson and really have him go off and have Jason Momoa go off the absolute deep end. That's storytelling.
Oh, man. Good stuff. Deckard Shaw. Let's talk about Bucky. Yeah, let's talk about Bucky.
James Buchanan Barnes. How sad. I can spell. One day we're going to do a retrospective specifically on Tommy Lee Jones. Hey, you put that gun down now. I did not kill my wife.
But yeah, talk about Bucky.
I mean, it's the beauty and the horror of Bucky. That's the best way I can say it. I mean, he has probably one of the best culminations of overcoming. You know what I mean? Like, when that scene in Falcon and the Winter Soldier where he's in Wakanda and he breaks his, like, that's true. Remember, I think I texted you after that. I said, wait a second. Why is this episode making me feel something right now? And I mean, you want to talk about completely villainous? Like, an assassin. Like, this was an assassin with no mind or no control. Like, imagine living in your body like that. It's kind of, in a way, it's kind of the same thought process as Jaime. Like, Jaime, it's like, you know, I was just a guy following some orders and I made a decision. Like, obviously, Bucky didn't have decision-making to do necessarily, but, you know, I think what Captain America 1 does a great job of setting up, like, this is going to be, there's so much tragedy in this, of, like, look at this cool, charismatic James Bucky Barnes, like, physically fit, like, I'm, like, a cool guy, you know, and then, like, to get all of that stripped away with you without will, and, you know, say what you will, Falcon and the Winter Soldier shows that in a really, really great way, of, like, how much, like, even possibly better than Captain America Civil War, of, like, this is frightening. Like, this is frightening. This man was just stripped of every single last thing that he ever had. And to go through how he needed to get it back, like, that is a true villain to hero.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it all culminates, obviously, in that scene in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier when you see him get his programming stripped away and how much it means to him.
Yep.
You know? And, you know, much like Jaime Lannister carries the sins of his past, Bucky also carries the sins of his past for a long time. You know, it's one of the core cruxes of Civil War. Like, excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. You know, he has to reconcile with the fact that he killed Tony's parents. More importantly, his mom.
Right.
But Tony even asks him in the midst of that fight, like, do you even remember her? And Bucky says, I remember them all.
Yep.
And you're like, oof.
And then they play on that so well in Falcon and the Winter Soldier where, you know, you think it's like, oh, Bucky's just having lunch with this random old guy. And then, like, no, like, he murdered, and he doesn't know how to deal with it, too. And the point that I don't think people think about enough is, like, Bucky and Steve were, like, they weren't kids, but they were young when they were in World War II. Like, Bucky was a young man when he died, like, that, and that's how much growing he got to do. Like, he didn't get to do more growing after that. Like, he was, you know, a cold-blooded, like, no-minded assassin after that. Like, obviously, like, there were points where he could turn it off, but then he would get just put on ice when he would turn it off. So, yeah, to see what he went through in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, of, like, and like I said, it's the horror of it, too. Like, he, not only for himself, but, like, overtly, like, like, that scene where he goes to, and he, you know, he murders, whatever his name is, son, like, that's scary. Like, dang, he really had no mind and no remorse after this too, and like how powerful he is on top of that too. Yeah, totally. I'm gonna talk a little anime here. I'm gonna talk about the Prince of all Saiyans. We're gonna talk about Vegeta. I mean, Dragon Ball is another one that's littered with this trope. Piccolo starts out this way. Tien starts out this way, but Vegeta obviously is the most popular. I mean, he starts out the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. He is a world conqueror. He's coming to Earth to conquer Earth, with Nappa. He is obviously Goku's chief rival, to a reluctant ally, to eventually sacrifices himself for Earth. When he becomes Majin Vegeta, and he has a brief Bucky-esque mind control going on, and then ultimately snaps out of it, sacrifices himself, and becomes a hero. A true hero. He was a bit of a legend, wasn't he? Driven, mostly by personal gain and personal desire, but eventually steps outside himself. Has a family. He marries Bulma, has Trunks. That also kind of changes his perspective on things, and it's a great classic
villain to hero arc for Vegeta, because again, obviously it's animated, it's anime, so like the scale and the gravity of what he's doing in the beginning of Dragon Ball Z is not as visceral as say like Jaime Lannister pushing Brain out the window.
Sure.
But I mean, he destroys cities and he kills a lot of people. I know in the Dragon Ball universe, humans are kind of like fodder.
Sure.
But he does some pretty heinous stuff in the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. You know, he's constantly poking and prodding, constantly being one-upped, constantly angry, but it becomes he becomes angry Uncle Vegeta, essentially, by the time you get to Dragon Ball Super, to the point where he ends up in Dragon Ball Super, where he befriends Kaba Saiyan, or of an alternate universe's Earth, and he ultimately sacrifices himself again in the Tournament of Power so that his universe can live on. And that is not a hero. Dang it, I don't know what is.
That's true. That's nice. Shout out Vegeta.
Shout out Vegeta.
You're always getting crapped on online.
He is. Vegeta.
Vegeta.
Who would win in a fight, Stephen A? Goku or Vegeta?
I'm gonna have to go with Vegeta. I'm gonna have to go with Goku because I don't know who Vegeta is.
You didn't think I knew Dragon Ball. You don't.
You don't. You're lying, buddy. Do you want to talk about one of the most classic movie villains? And we're going to switch over to the sports realms of movies. We're going to talk about Apollo Creed.
I love this one. When you mentioned this to me, I was like, that's such a good one.
One of the first ones. And I'm like, we're leaning towards antagonists, but I mean, Rocky is one of the classics. I mean, it's a consummate classic.
He's as villainous as you can get for a boxing movie.
And that's...
Until you get to Drago.
And that's my point. And again...
There's always a bigger fish.
Yep.
A bigger Russian fish.
Right. Apollo's so interesting because it's such a great person to put against Rocky in the first one too.
Yes.
It's like the perfect counter, like this golden gloves, like, you know, again, charismatic, like this man he is him. Like he has everything that he would ever want. And like, what's this little Italian guy from Philadelphia ever gonna think he's ever gonna do to me? Like I am the greatest. Like, and it's your willful ignorance of the underdog, I think, is a perfect, like, there's a blindness that comes along with Apollo that, like, he couldn't be beat.
Well, he gives Rocky the opportunity because he thought that'd be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, give him this, give this kid from Philly a shot at the champ. Like, this is going to be great.
Yeah, he's like, obviously I'm going to beat him. Like, obviously I don't have a problem, but, like, promotional, this is great. And again, like, thinking about, like, a corporate greed sense of it, like, that was Apollo. Apollo was so caught up in all of those things, and, like, after he gets out of the ring with Rocky, it's like, I'm a different man now. Like, I think what Apollo really gained was respect. Like, it was a piece of his life that he didn't have until he needed to have it. Like, he got respect and he got perspective on top of that, too.
And he won, but also felt like he needed to get his lick back.
Exactly.
He's like, I actually have to, like... I might have won, but, like, I have to, like, prove myself now as, like, a fighter.
Right.
That I can beat this man.
Right.
And then he doesn't. He loses to Rocky.
Right.
And then that ultimately culminates in Rocky 3 when, Rocky gets his brains beat in by Clubber Lang.
Right.
And where does he go to get his mojo back?
Right. To Apollo. And I mean, again, another piece of this is, rest in peace to Carl Weathers as well. And it's the sell of, like, there's more to me too. Like, I wasn't always like, I did this because of, I have to fight. Like, I'm a fighter. Like, I need to be this, like, antagonistic person until I don't have, like, now I can step back. Like, now I can teach you, I gotta teach you, like, how to be powerful again, I'm strong. Like, I'm strong like an ox. Like, I have to teach you my ways a little bit too. Like, I love how for him, his hero is more of like the wise old sage he turns into, which is funny. But then he does what most wise old sages do. They unfortunately have to sacrifice themselves for the younger one too. So to get to Rocky IV and to see, like, it was like the Coulson thing for the Avengers. Like, Apollo needed to die for Rocky to win. Like, that's kind of how it went to go. So, and again, this is more of like a meta, like, movie thinking way of it, but Apollo going from, like, one of the most classic antagonists in movie history to, like, one of the most beloved characters in movie history really said something.
Yeah. When you said that, I was like, wait, that's actually genius. All right, it's time to get, like, some heavy hitters in Loki.
You want to talk about the Scarlet Witch, or do you want to talk about Loki?
Loki, I think, because Wanda kind of does like a bit of this, you know?
Sure.
Like she starts as like, you know, I wouldn't say she's a villain in Age of Ultron. She's like an antagonist. And then obviously,
yeah, maybe she's tough. Maybe she shouldn't even belong on this list because it's like, again, this is like the meta way of thinking of like she was presented as the villain. Like in the comics too, like her and Quicksilver were just villains against the Avengers until they weren't. Like,
yeah,
it's the same concept for her essentially. Like she's not the bad guy. She's just like
Whereas Loki is a true transformation, I mean, literally and figuratively.
I can't say enough good things about that Loki show. Like you can't. And I've always admitted it. I will always admit it. To the end of the day, I was not in. When they announced that Loki show, I said, "Why? What is this? Like, this makes no sense." And this was post Endgame. I was like, "This makes no sense."
Yeah,
like,
you're gonna take Loki from Avengers 2012 and just give him a show?
Not even that. I'm just why? Why does Loki need like? I feel like there's other characters that like need play and and like new characters that we need to see, but like. Loki's getting his own show. And again, that just shows to the level of filmmaking that they were working with and the level of talent they were working with. But
we didn't know.
But I mean, again, Loki was a villain, but again, it's not that simple. Like, imagine your brother is, you know, touted to be the most important man in the 9 realms, and you have to live with that every single day of your life. Like, you know, and then you find out that that's not even your brother on top of that too. And this isn't even your family. And like, my blood is literally littered with like these creatures that are like built upon being evil and antagonistic. Like, but what was his tether? It was his mother. Like, it's such a simple thing. And it's like, it's one of the only good things that Thor 2 does of like, it's just that little piece where Loki, like, they don't even have dialogue in the scene. I think one of the guards just comes whispers like, you know, Frigga is dead, and like Loki just lose like one little flare up of anger, and that was it. Because, you know, he's one of those like posh, like I have to keep up appearances, but he's like he let it go because he truthfully loved his mother, and I think he truthfully loved all of them. He just maybe not Odin, but I think he truthfully loved Thor too. He just didn't want to admit it. Until he did.
The sun will rise on us again, brother.
Yep. And then you get to Loki. And then...
Tell me!
Man, what Loki, the end of episode 1 of Loki does so simply, it's like, I always say it, it's like, it's so incredible, it's radicalization. It's like, and you think about it too, I remember I thought about it, I was like, wow, this could be like a psychological course, like a lesson that you can give, or like a test, like, how would you react if you saw your entire life play out in seconds? Like, you just saw everything that happened in your entire life and...
No glorious purpose.
Like, in a shot. And, like, your glorious purpose is that you were murdered. And that's it by the person that said, I will give you power to take your throne. Like, that person just murdered you, left you on the ground on a ship, and that was it. I would probably think some things of my life. I would probably want to rework some things, and it's just... It's that simple thing to show, again, how human he is, like how, you know, how human he is, like how much of a person he is. He's like, I'm still myself. Like, I'm still like a jerk. I'm still Loki, but maybe this is more than me. And again, it's the Doctor Strange. It's one of the best lines from the MCU I've ever heard. And it's from the Ancient One when she, even after Doctor Strange goes through all these trials and, you know, he's still thinking about how to save things. And she said, it's not about you. None of this is about you. Like, this is about protection of the multiverse. And we need your help. So, like I said, for Loki, it's as simple as like, it's one that's the personal gain versus this is bigger than you could ever imagine. Like, this is more than you can ever imagine. And I still can't believe season 2 took the swing. And like, you want to talk about landing endings for something?
Yeah.
What a ending that Loki season 2 had.
For sure.
And making him, you know, God, like I'm talking the God of stories Loki. And like, you want to talk about your sacrifice point? Like, he literally sacrificed himself to sit at the end of time to reignite all the multiverses.
And just the genius of Tom Hiddleston was you know, the mastermind behind reusing the "for you, for all of us."
Yep.
Because when he delivers it in Thor 1, he doesn't truly believe it when he says, you know, I did it, Father, I did it for you, for all of us. And Odin kind of sees through it, like no you didn't. No, you didn't. You did this for yourself. Like, you didn't do this. You didn't do any of this for us. Like, what are you kidding me? But then when he brings it back in Loki season 2, when he says for you, for all of us, like, he means it. You know, I'm doing this so that not just all of us in this room, like all of us in the entire multiverse, I'm doing this for all of us. And you buy it. You buy it because of the transformation that he's since undergone.
And what an incredible and I mean, you know, he's informed by his love for Sylvie, and he's informed by, you know, the past love for his mother, and
his love for Mobius.
And it's just like he grew, like, it showed, like I said, like, it's such a genius part of that show is, like, show me everything from my life. Like, oh God, like, I just saw everything that I've ever needed to see. And, like, it's I love the abrupt way it ends. It's just like, end. Like, it's like it was like a short film, like, just Finn. Like, this is it. So, what an incredible character journey that he went on. How it informs all the other characters. Like, the character work for Loki inside of the confines of the show itself, but the MCU as a whole, it's nothing short of incredible. And I think Tom Hiddleston helps it for Thor 2. Like, Tom Hiddleston gets it through the Thor 2's writing. Like, it helps because if it's not him, it might fail and fall, and I might not trust him again. Then you get to Ragnarok, and you're like, again, the layers start to peel, and then you get to the Loki show, and you're like, well, I'm thinking of the MCU still. You're thinking of Thor 2, and you're like, how good could this get? It's the best that it could have ever got.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, having Hiddleston being able to do what he can do is just, it just takes it to another level.
Yeah.
And it just makes for one of the most compelling character arcs in Marvel, like, what, in the MCU.
Yeah, and I mean, we even talked about it. We were like, when, you know, we made our claim for, you know, main character, like, our first thought was Loki. Like, we were like, at this point, especially at, like, what better way would you do for, you know, at the time, Kang Dynasty, like, you know, all this multiversal stuff was happening. Like, what an incredible arc to get back to. Like, you find out that Loki, like, Kang's plot is to kill Loki because he knows that he's the one that's holding all these timelines together, and, like, you know, the Avengers have to, like, through Doctor Strange, like, go protect Loki, and, you know, Thor and Loki finally meet again, and he said, I told you the sun would rise on us again. That's that cinema they talk about.
that we're never gonna get. You got another one? You got one more? We'll do one more.
One more apiece? Ooh, don't do this to me. Just one more apiece? Steve Harrington. No, that was a fun one.
Let's talk about Steve. Yeah, it doesn't have to be our one more, but we could talk about Steve a little bit.
And then, again, this is a little bit more of a meta way of thinking of it, but, you know, Stranger Things in universe too. Like, Steve was a jerk. Like, Steve
hated him.
Yeah,
I hated him. Season 1, hated him.
He did bad things. Like, he did bad things.
He broke Nancy's heart.
He broke Nancy. The worst thing you can do. Wait a minute. Once you get further for Steve's arc, Nancy broke Steve's heart.
And then he becomes the best guy.
He becomes the best guy because the best part about Steve's whole thing of being... Because, again, in the meta sense, he was, like, your 80s cool, like...
Great hair.
And then, like, on a two-pronged front... Then you get to, what's his name? You get to Dacre Montgomery in season 2, and you're just like, oh no, there was a bigger fish.
Oh, the T-1000.
There was a
It's the T-1000 of 80s jerks.
80s teen jerks. And Steve showed his humanity through that. I mean,
he was the T-800.
Yeah, he was.
He was the outdated model.
Yeah, and then, again, get down. Like, he protected the kids. He's their mom now. I don't know how
he's got a great friendship with Robin.
Right.
He's back will they with Nancy.
Right, but he's so accepting of Robin on top of that, too, and all the kids.
Yes.
He'll give his life happily for any of them.
Yes.
He's the best guy. But he wasn't.
Yeah. Oh, I can't... I still remember how much I hated him in season 1. Like, he's just... You're scum.
Yeah, he's scummy. He's just scummy 80s, like, gonna break your heart before you find the guy that has the heart of gold, which they play on with him and Jonathan. And then you realize she should have just stayed with Steve.
Jonathan might just be weird.
Yeah, he might be like a weird guy. But Steve's protective. He can provide. He works at the, what's it called?
The video store?
No. Oh, yeah, he got a job at the video store. Heck yeah, nice.
Steve.
He's the best.
He's
so cool.
I fucking hated his guts.
But now you don't. Now I only want the best for Steve.
Yeah. I thought he was gonna die last season.
Yeah, I thought he was. He was a goner.
a goner. But then Eddie stepped in and said, "Hold my beer. I'm the goner." Actually, this season. Let's talk about Sheev Palpatine. Just kidding. We're actually not going to talk about Sheev Palpatine.
Should I go with mine first? Because this is, I mean, Anakin. There's no other way than to end on Anakin.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Doc Ock.
Yes.
As a whole.
Yes.
And I mean, your Doc Ock, from comics, you can go for maybe not the Spider-Man games. He's a bad guy, but he has the inverse arc. He goes from a good guy to a villain.
Yeah.
But comic Doc Ock, and movie Doc Ock, specifically Spider-Man 2, we can kind of focus on more of he wasn't a bad guy. He just obviously his brain was being infected on top of that too. But noble sacrifice. Sometimes it's simple, that noble sacrifice to understand this is bigger than me. And again, another piece we don't talk about enough is what have I done? Seeing the horror of what you created, that's a big piece for Bucky. I saw the horror of what I've done. Never again. I can no more.
He built the sun?
Yeah, he did build the sun. Nice. I love how I think Cinema Sense talks about it. He's like, absolutely insane scientific advancement being usurped by another insane scientific advancement is insane. Man makes a sentient robotic system that attaches to the brain cells to make sure that they work. And he's like, that's nothing. I made the sun. And you're like, huh?
I will not die a monster.
Character actor Alfred Molina.
He's the best.
He is the best.
What did you do with my machine? And then he really became a hero.
Yeah, he did. Twice. He did that. He pulled the same arc twice.
That's the genius of Alfred Molina.
Yeah. Shout out to him.
It's a great, and then, I think we also tweaked, one of the many things, maybe not many things, but one of the things we did get right about Spider-Man No Way Home was we were like, Doc Ock's going to turn into a good guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then he did.
Yeah.
And he fought Green Goblin.
Yeah, he did. He didn't win.
No, he didn't win. First he got thrown out of a building by Electro.
Yeah.
And then he got thrown off of the Statue of Liberty by Green Goblin. It's a good thing he has those arms. Peter, my boy, how are you doing? Trying to do better. Not enough of that.
I have my gripes with. Look, I'm a second half truther of No Way Home. The second half of No Way Home goes absolutely wildly insane. The first half, it feels artificial. Does not feel like an actual movie.
The hell? There I was, sitting in the grid.
Sitting in the grid, recharging.
And then, oh shit. Jamie Foxx was cooking in that movie.
Because he was just Jamie Foxx.
I know. There was nothing at all Max Dillon Electro about him.
Absolutely not. He switched universes and in a Deadpool understanding, the universe knew that he looked like Jamie Foxx, so he took Jamie Foxx's consciousness into Max Dillon's knowledge. That's how I think about it. Because how did he get a hairline? He got a fresh cut hairline.
You, Doc Ock. What was Sandman doing in that movie?
Thomas Hayden Church, they said, can you record 12 lines? He's like, sure.
Can you literally and figuratively phone this in?
I love the headcanon that he wanted to be in the movie, but it was going to be too expensive, so they're like, one of them can't be in this movie.
Spider-Man No Way Home.
They cut Reese Fonz. Cowards.
Not my king, Reese Fonz.
It's not the best character actor, Reese Fonz.
Otto Hightower arc? TBD.
Yeah, it might be coming. It might be on the way.
My grandson is a fool. Alright. Let's talk about Vader.
It is the archetype of the...
Yeah, this is it.
This is the one.
Can Space Hitler be redeemed?
Come on, man. Why'd you have to say it like that? Now I don't want to answer.
Hear me out.
No, Palpatine was Space Hitler.
True.
What are you talking about?
All right, let's talk about space.
No. If
you play the arc in reverse.
No.
If you play Palpatine's arc in reverse, he goes from Space Hitler to well-intentioned galactic senator.
He turns into Tim Walz. Senator Sheev.
Should we talk about Vader and Kylo Ren at the same time?
Yeah, Kylo Ren's my man. I have so much heart for Kylo Ren, and I wish things would have unraveled differently.
I mean, the problem with Kylo Ren's villain to hero arc is
The Last Jedi.
Well, he goes from villain to hero in about 30 minutes.
Right. With no explanation. Oh, and Rise of Skywalker with no explanation. There's explanation, but it's like he sees his dad. I can't believe Harrison Ford came back for that.
Me either.
I can't believe he did it. He should have said no. No, he wanted to have $300 million to make Indiana Jones, so he was saying yes to everything.
I was stunned when he showed back up.
I was like, wait a minute. No, not like this.
That was more shocking than when The Rock came back to Fast and Furious.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
But yeah, Kylo Ren, it could have been special. Mm-hmm. Which is honestly, like, when I saw Force Awakens for the first time, I was absolutely 100%, 1,000 positive there. I'm like, oh, they're going to do a reverse Anakin with Kylo Ren, and they're going to start him on the dark side, and by the end of the thing, he's going to be on the light side. And they just didn't do it until the last 20 minutes of Rise of Skywalker. And then he became cool.
Yeah, he was so cool. He was like, he had this little, he's like,
Oh.
Yep. He should have made one of them flinch. He should have been like,
not fan favorite characters, the Knights of Ren. I'm bringing that bit back from like episode 5 of the podcast.
What's his name? What's his name from the Acolyte? Everybody's thirst trap favorite.
Manny Jacinto?
Yeah. Well, what's his name in the? Oh, Chimere.
Yeah.
He's probably one of the Knights of Ren.
All your favorites are there. I'm bringing this bit back.
Axe guy. Hammer guy.
Sword guy.
Another axe guy.
Was there a guy with a gun?
I can't remember. The gun is so out of place, it seems much funnier. But it doesn't work.
There was a guy with a mace?
I think it was a mace. Hawk Girl's like, I want copyright infringement.
Yeah!
One day we're going to talk about Justice League Unlimited.
One day we're going to talk about the Knights of Ren. Knights of Ren retrospective.
How can you retrospective the Knights of Ren?
They have such deep, tragic backstories. The one guy. Why do they have weird medieval weapons in Star Wars?
I don't understand. I don't know who the Knights of Ren.
They didn't even have like. None of them even had like. It wasn't even like the Praetorian Guards had like. They had stabs, but like they were like
cool.
Yeah, they had like electric bits at the end.
That's because Rian Johnson's cool.
The Knights of Ren just had regular weapons.
I don't understand it. Were they even Jedi?
No, I don't think.
At some point they were.
But then where their lightsabers go?
I don't know. Because Vader gave all the lightsabers to the Inquisitors.
Kylo Ren saw the Inquisitors and said, "Never again.
Never again.
Never again will I give my underlings lightsabers. You get an axe. You get a sword. You also get an axe."
I'm telling you, one of them had a gun, but it only works as a melee weapon. Can't even be fired.
It's a bayonet. It's a space bayonet. All right, we're going to talk about Darth Vader. It's enough about the Knights of Ren. I'm going to time code that bit. Knights of Ren talk.
Knights of Ren. Wait, villains to heroes? Who knows? Pending arc?
No, he killed them all, didn't he? Did he kill all the Knights of Ren?
I think they are all... Oh, yeah, he had to murder all of them because he was cool again. He just got a nice long sleeve.
It was kind of tough when he pulled the lightsaber from... He David Blaine that.
But then then it turned into like an Edgar Wright movie. He had like a little, he's like, huh? And then he just murdered.
He did a little David Copperfield action with the lightsaber.
Did. That was cool.
You're never going to guess what's behind my back. The Knights of Ren were like, surely it's not a lightsaber, right?
Why is this a Buster Keaton skit now? It was a lightsaber.
You're unarmed. Am I? You check behind your ear for this lightsaber?
Cuts his head off.
Oh, that would have been so much better.
What if he kept making it disappear and found it in different spots?
Ray's just like putting it in different spots.
Somebody that's never watched Star Wars that listens to that bit is probably like, what?
I may not have my lightsaber now, but did you check behind your cape?
Cape? I don't even have a cape. Do you?
He's just making different things appear and disappear. Where's my axe? said axe guy of the Knights of Ren.
Check your shoe. Check your stomach. Oh no, he murdered me.
Whoa. Oh, whoa.
Whoa.
Got your nose.
Got your nose.
Oh, no.
It's a lightsaber in my face.
Oh, no, he does have my nose. Kylo Ren, street magician.
That's it. That's the Kylo Ren portion. I don't even want to commit to even talking about his arc anymore. I just want to talk about Vader now.
It wasn't good. It was unearned. Dude, you can't just become a good guy.
Well, I told you that. I mean, the big thing for Kylo Ren is like they should have kept the number one. Should have kept him alive.
Yeah,
you would have kept him alive, and you did that whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
that would have been great.
You could have had him come back for these new movies and been like, all right, I'm going to train some Jedi. Everybody in the galaxy's like, wait a minute.
Wait, hold on a second. Aren't you the guy who trained the Knights of Ren?
Right? No, they don't care about that. They care about the planet murdering.
Those guys were whack.
That's what everybody hates, the Knights of Ren. They're just like, I can't believe you trained the Knights of Ren. He's like, you don't remember like the 5 planets he blew up?
Remember Star Killer?
Yeah, Star Killer was an issue.
Villain to hero arc for the Death Star? They built a bigger Death Star? No. They built a bigger Death Star.
Talk about Anakin.
All right, we're going to talk about Vader.
That was crazy.
They did build a bigger Death Star.
They did. The Death Star.
And then they built a bigger Palpatine. Or a smaller Palpatine? He was cut in half. I don't know. They did build a bigger Palpatine. It was Supreme Leader Snoke.
How?
He was bigger Palpatine.
How did his lightning control all of those ships? I have. You don't understand how many questions I have.
Where do you get all the steel for all those starter droids?
Look, I'm very forgiving when it comes to lore. Like, because lore is stupid. Lore is dumb.
Yeah. But
how is he alive?
Palpatine? I don't know.
Why is Rey his granddaughter?
Fortnite explained it, I think. If I'm not mistaken.
I want to like curl up into a ball.
Fortnite explained it.
Who are the Knights of Ren?
What do you mean? We already established this.
But like, no. Let me rephrase. Why are the Knights of Ren?
It'd be kind of funny if all the guys, like those guys, like were all known for their weapons, but they were all actually skilled with each other's weapons. Like Axe Guy was actually good with the big hammer, but they gave him the axe instead. Classic Kylo Ren diversion.
Dude, what did his character turn into in the last 30 minutes of that movie?
He turned into Han Solo.
But like he was fully committed in the last Jedi. He did turn into Han Solo. He got cool.
He remembered he was Han Solo's son.
Yeah, he said enough of being Leia's son and Luke's nephew. I'm Han Solo's kid.
Dude. Wait a minute, I'm just cool now.
Wait a minute, look at my hair. I rock. And then he got murdered.
Oh yeah, what was that?
And then they kissed.
But then he died anyway.
Yeah.
But they're a dyad in the Force?
I don't do it. Don't try it.
All right, speaking of that, we got to talk about Anakin. Go ahead. Go ahead. Talk about Anakin.
I mean, what do you think? Like I said, all-time arcs, and I mean, you know, from a meta perspective, from like the outside looking in perspective, you know, starting 4, 5, 6, what an absolute swing for in the 70s doing sci-fi. And said, yeah, I'm going to start with the 4th, 5th, and 6th, and you're going to have to... He said, you know, you guys might not like it, but your kids are going to love it. Like the Marty McFly, like, starting 4, 5, 6? Are you nuts? Like, that's crazy.
And making Darth Vader literally, like, the scariest, most evil thing. You don't even know if he's a person.
Darth Vader,
under there?
Right, and I mean, this is the best... Darth Vader is the villain. He in movie talk, in like, pop culture Darth Vader is the one. Like he is the end all be all. He is the, like, you look any ranking list, like best villains, most important, it is Darth Vader will be one on every single one of those lists.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if you didn't put him one, you're lying to yourself. It's Darth Vader. In cinema history, it's Darth Vader. He is the villain. There's no bigger villain. There's no more. Thanos was creeping a little bit. I will give Brolin some credit. Thanos was creeping, but I mean, guess what they were comparing him to? He's like Michael Jordan. Like, what were you getting compared to? You're getting compared to Darth Vader.
Yeah.
So, to give him an arc in the 70s and 80s is something, because, you know, movies didn't overtly have that, especially in like there was a lot. The 70s and 80s were very clear cut and dry for like your big blockbusters. Like there wasn't like,
and they were also predicated on the heroes,
right?
Like,
and exactly like the 80s action hero. Like there's no subtlety in like I'm trying to think of Indiana Jones. Like there's no
Nazis,
right? There's right exactly like there's no subtlety to this. Like you're a Nazi,
Drago,
right? You're just the punchy bad guy. You're the robotic. I don't know if you're a human or not.
The T-800.
T-800. Like you showed up and you're like a slasher. Like it's just,
yeah. I mean, you're movie slashers. Yeah.
Right. Like that's who you are, Darth Vader. Like you were the big old bad guy that comes around with the red lightsaber as opposed to everybody's blue and green lightsaber. Like that's who you are. Until
Empire.
Until George Lucas said, "What if I made one of the greatest movies of all time?
I am your father."
Huh? Have you seen like kids watching that with their parents for the first time? Like videos of that?
I haven't.
It's just
no.
like I saw some videos of like people watching Star Wars for the first time, and like it's a compilation.
But I imagine it's cool as hell.
Yeah, and they're just like, excuse me, and like because you can't run. And this is why he's the biggest and greatest villain of all time. You can't run away from who Darth Vader is. Like in your mind, he is the villain. So for him to be like, no,
he killed Ben. Or did he?
Ben killed himself.
If you strike me down, I shall only become more powerful.
How does that work?
Hacks.
How does that work? Yeah, he's hacking. How does that work?
He's hacking the system.
How does that work?
But yeah, I mean that singular moment, like you're conditioned throughout A New Hope, and most of Empire that Darth Vader killed Luke's father.
Mm-hmm. Man, they were cooking.
Ben told me everything. He told me you killed my father. No, I am your father. What?
You said what now, brother?
And then you get to Return of the Jedi, and that's what Return of the Jedi goes for. It's Luke's story, but Return of the Jedi also applies to Vader.
Right. And it's like, again, as much bad as you've done, my father's still in there. The Jedi that I've heard did all these great things. You're still in there. You're in there somewhere. Like, I need you to, like, what did you say in Arrow? Roy, I need you to stop. We talked about Arrowverse a lot today.
We did.
But yeah, I mean, on a serious note, like, I need you to find who you were again, and like it came through. Like Anakin Skywalker is still Anakin Skywalker. Like the flyboy that did all this good throughout as ever like tough and rugged as he ever was. Like he still was a good person.
Anakin Skywalker is dead.
Anakin is gone. Only I remain. Man,
he can act.
He's got aura. He's got presence.
Hayden?
Yeah. Remember in episode 4, where he was just standing there?
Menacingly?
But I didn't know if it was a vision or not, but he was just standing there. I was like, oh, shoot.
You were warned. What defeat would bring. I will tolerate your failure no longer.
Remember when he showed up in Fallen Order? And you were like, what the...
But going back to Return of the Jedi, like, that's where the movie culminates. Like, Palpatine...
The trilogy culminates.
Palpatine finally realizes that he can't turn Luke, so he's like, all right, fine, I'm just going to fry you.
Right. With my space lightning, watch this. I'm going to use this to create a full army later.
And Vader finally snaps.
Don't touch my son.
They added that in the re-release.
Yeah, don't touch my son, jerk.
Don't touch my son. Don't do it.
Don't do it. That's my son. Leave him alone. It was established in the last movie. Leave him be.
And then he dies.
Honorably, nobly, but that leads Anakin to be able to go into the, what do you call it?
Space heaven.
Force heaven. Now I could be a force ghost.
And I can be the original actor, and then I can be Hayden Christensen in the re-release. In the re-release version, I can become Hayden Christensen. How does that work? How did he become Hayden Christensen again?
Technology?
Wait, I want to be young Anakin. When I was good? Question mark?
He did some weird things.
He did some bad things.
Yeah, he did some questionable things. I saw the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I want you to be the great Jedi hero you were.
I'm pretty sure that was Obi-Wan. You're looking for Obi-Wan, aren't you?
The Tusken Raiders? Remember when he slaughtered that village of women and children?
He didn't mean it.
Not just the women.
Not just the men, but the women and the children. You know what Padme said? We should have a baby right now.
If only Luke could be there. You were kind of a brat, actually.
Yeah. Shouldn't I get Obi-Wan? Like, I feel like this fits Obi-Wan a little bit more.
Was he my dad?
They both had blonde hair.
Look.
Leia, or Padme and Anakin didn't have blonde hair.
These questions.
Get my boy Matt Merck. These questions.
These questions need to be answered.
These questions.
What you cooking, Obi-Wan? What were you cooking?
Padme, presumably.
Anakin's the father, isn't he? Is he?
Is he? Or did you just try to get the trail off of you, buddy?
Remember when she died because of sadness? That robot was beside itself.
Thinking about the robot, I was just the robot thing was like, I don't know what's happening, and I'm a robot. I have all the knowledge in the galaxy. I don't understand why she's dying. It makes no sense. The robot said, "In my 1,000 years of being a
robot,
being a birth robot, I don't know why she's dying." She's never been more healthy than right now, and she just died. I don't get it. Did her heart stop? No. She just died. I don't know what to tell you. Oh, God. That would have been so much funnier if that robot was Alan Tudyk. That would have been infinitely more funny.
Yeah, that robot was shocked. The babies are perfectly healthy, but we're losing her. Obi-Wan's like, huh?
What do you mean you're losing her? What does that even mean? Blood pressure spiking? No.
Get back in there.
Save my wife. What?
Nothing.
Save Padme. Just get back in there.
Get back in there and fix it.
Oh, God. We were supposed to talk about and now we're talking about how egregious that was. Why is Padme dead? Vader killed her?
Well, that's what Palpatine said.
Obi-Wan killed her? Because he didn't want anybody to know?
It would seem...
You did it because you didn't want me to know.
It would seem in your anger you killed her. No. But yeah. Vader's arc. I mean, yeah, Luke, Vader sacrifices himself and he's laying there and Luke is like, come back with us. And Vader's like, nah, man.
Nah. No.
For reasons beyond our understanding, I'm dying.
Said, no, I don't think I will.
I got zapped one too many times, kid. I'm sorry. That force lightning is a bitch.
Until I can force ignite an entire fleet, there's no logic. There's just, I don't understand.
Also, what happened to Rey's lightning powers?
She's good. That's a bad thing. I don't have an answer for you. It just doesn't make sense. What's the funny thing? I've been doing this for the last 2 months for whatever reason. I've been running through bad movies, really bad fandom movies, and just finding them overtly fun.
Yeah.
So I ran through Force Stick. I watched Daredevil. I've just been watching whatever I could get my hands on. So I might watch The Rise of Skywalker just to be this is so fun, so funny and dumb.
Yahoo!
Shut up.
Shut up, Forge.
Shut up, Forge. R.I.P. Beast, you would have loved Forge. Anakin.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be such a serious ending, and we talked about how we were going to end with that, and then we were like, why is Padme even dead?
Because...
Is Obi-Wan the father?
Because part of the Anakin deal is the prequel stuff, too.
Yeah. It's funny even how the comics really dug into how incredible it was for him too, and really humanized him at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, say what you want about the Obi-Wan show, but that ending scene with them is perfectly emblematic of the fall and the eventual re-rise, because Obi-Wan's trying to appeal. It's Anakin. That scene is Anakin convincing himself that Anakin doesn't exist, if that makes sense.
Right.
That's what it was. It's not Anakin convincing Obi-Wan that Anakin doesn't exist. It's Anakin have to convince himself that Anakin doesn't exist.
Right.
Staring Obi-Wan down and hearing Obi-Wan going, I'm sorry, Anakin, for all of it. And Anakin going, Anakin's not in there, pal.
Did you read that as the last apology?
From who?
From Anakin.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was in the minority for it, but I always read that as the last closure, obviously it was closure, but like it was like like I said, it's like an apology.
Basically
like,
saying like you didn't do this.
Like I'm so like
I did this to myself.
And like also like it's obviously the mask was broken, but like I'm sorry that I got to this, but I can't go back now.
Yeah, like I've become this monster, so like I have to, in a weird way, like I have to see it through. Like there's no going back now. Like even if I wanted to come back, and maybe a part of me does want to come back, like I've done so many heinous things that like,
and that's the important piece of like there's a little, and that's finally what Luke finally pulls in the Return of the Jedi. Like there's still a piece of me in here. Like Anakin's still in here. I'm gone, and like Padme's gone. On top of that, like Padme was probably the only thing that could have saved me. She's gone, and like what other way to you're my brother, and like I want you to bring me back, but I'm so embarrassed. I'm so disgusted with you can't, like I failed you, and I can't say those words as Vader, but I can, I can kind of subliminally give it to you as Anakin for a second while you can see it the last time you're ever going to see my face. And then Luke, and then what better way to bring you back than the son? Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately like the point that Luke pulls on is like, yeah, like you've done all these terrible things, but like you can still come back. Like you can still come back to the light even after all these things. Like that's the point. Like that's the point. I think that ultimately, I think the old guard of the Jedi, the reason they fall is because of that. Like their world is so black and white. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why their hubris obviously leads to their downfall. Yep. And the return of the Sith. Like, but Luke's point, honestly, even the sequel trilogy is along those lines. Like, this isn't like a black and white thing. Mm-hmm. Like, there is no inherent good and evil. Like, we make good choices, we make bad choices, but even when we make the horrible choices, we can still make that one good choice that brings us back to the side of the light.
2 or 3 moments, Wade.
This episode was sponsored by Colossus.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's a great point though. Like that's ultimately what Luke's point is about Vader. Like you still have a chance. Mm-hmm. Like even while he's like staring Palpatine down and Vader is still kind of staying out of it, like Luke is like, you still have a chance to make this right. Even like as Palpatine's killing Luke, like you still have a chance to make this right. And then he eventually does. And it ultimately makes all the difference. Like it enables him to, I guess, become more in tune with the Force and return to Obi-Wan and Anakin's side and be, I guess you don't truly know if he's been forgiven. I guess in reality it doesn't matter. Like if he's been forgiven by the powers that be, like that doesn't really matter. What matters is Luke forgave him.
Yeah.
And that's all that really matters. Like it doesn't really matter if anyone else forgave him. Like Luke and to be honest, like Luke never probably felt like he had to forgive him for anything. He just, wanted to free his father from the darkness.
Yeah.
And he ultimately does. And I think that's why Vader's, obviously you don't ever see him be a hero after becoming Darth Vader. He just has this one heroic act.
Right.
But because of all the evil he had done, that one heroic act means a lot.
Right.
I think is kind of the gist. Like it's I kind of made the joke earlier, like how do you forgive like basically Space Hitler, but like it's more complex than that. It's not that simple. Like it's not that simple. It's not about forgiving him. Mm-hmm. It's about him making this act. Mm-hmm. He made a choice.
Yeah.
At the end, like.
Yeah, and I mean one of the biggest parts of this episode is it's not about the things. It's not about who you are. It's about the things that you do.
Yeah,
and as many horrible, terrible acts that you've done. Like Vader's one good act was killing the Emperor, who was about to fully incinerate this universe. Like you did it. Like you saved the galaxy.
And I mean, and the beautiful part about it in Vader's case is like, you'll like nobody will ever know.
Yeah, and that's sacrifice.
Like and that's the part that's like that. I think that's kind of the point I'm making about the forgiveness piece is like he didn't do it to be forgiven and he didn't do it to be absolved. You know what I mean? Because he knew, if he did this, A, he would probably die, and B, no one would know that it was Darth Vader who saved save the galaxy.
And even if it was Darth Vader, how would the public perception? They probably wouldn't believe that.
No, absolutely not. They wouldn't, and so really the only people that know are, our main players, but it's not like they went around broadcasting it to the galaxy that Darth Vader saved the Empire, or saved the galaxy rather. Like, so I think that's part of it too. Like, again, like going back to like the forgiveness piece, he wasn't doing it for forgiveness or absolution. He was doing it to save his son at the end of the day, like, and doing it because where the prequel trilogy informs that decision is he did it out of like the decades long, gaslighting that the Emperor did to him. Like, the Emperor made him just as much a monster as he made himself.
And that's a lot of the point. I mean, it's the Bucky point. Like, Bucky didn't do that to himself, like, but he has to live with the things that he's done.
Yeah. Like, I mean, he's, as soon as Vader gets out of that, not even out of the chair yet, he's still strapped to it when the Emperor tells him, you killed Padme out of your own anger. Like, he's already twisting Anakin, So, yeah, Anakin, man, like you said, it's the standard. It's the standard bearer. So, I guess that's it.
That's it.
Gotta end on Vader. Gotta end on the man himself.
Alex Rodriguez?
Nope. Axe guy from the Knights of Ren.
No, he was always a hero. Until he was slain down by that murderous Kylo Ren. That murderous Ben Solo struck him down.
But yeah, that's gonna do it for us this week. You can follow us on Twitter at @ProjectINF_pod. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on YouTube at the Project Infinite Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram
at the Project Infinite Pod.
Next week, like I said at the top of the episode, we are going to talk about WandaVision.
I am so freaking excited.
Me too. I'm really
Some pumped. Of you don't understand. You don't understand that WandaVision era.
The grip.
The world was shut down.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about all that stuff because all that stuff does inform what happened with that show and like how it had like that kind of like old school TV. Like after each episode, people jumped online to theorize. Yeah, and be like, what is happening on this show?
The aerospace engineer. I must say,
You drank the Kool-Aid.
I made the Kool-Aid.
You made and mixed the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I was the Kool-Aid man. That was. I was in.
Man, that's wild.
And that's why Loki was such a great follow-up, because then we were like, oh, surely nothing will happen in Loki. And then Kang showed up, and I was like, oh, shoot.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to talk about WandaVision, and it'll be a good, fun time. I'm excited. I honestly have not watched that show since it aired.
Me neither.
So I'm excited to go back to it.
No, I did. I did one watch through, but it was more of like let me put this on to sleep.
Yeah, no, I haven't watched it since it ended. I just remembered, that should have just been her suit. I'll talk about that.
Yeah.
That was her final Scarlet Witch costume was perfect.
Yeah, and then Shackman on top of that, who's doing Fantastic Four. And we're going to talk about how informed that 50s and 60s inspired that he was going for in WandaVision, like how much of the right person he was for Fantastic Four. I'm excited, man. I was like we talk about it with like Timothée Chalamet doing The King before doing Dune, like him doing this was important for him to get to Fantastic Four. Like, yeah, there's so many factors that go into this, and then we get to talk about Elizabeth Olsen and how important she is,
and Paul Bettany,
the
greatest troll who's ever trolled.
Mm-hmm.
There's an actor I worked with that I've wanted to work with my whole career.
Al Pacino as Mephisto. Yo, we were all in.
People were unhinged. We were all in. People were unhinged. That show was unhinged. Not the show, but
It's because 2019, we saw Endgame and everybody was in it, and then 2020, and then even Kevin Feige's like, there's no punches pulled. This is like an extension of the movie. So we're like, oh shoot, they're gonna do it, and then they did it.
Then it was just
the Ship of Theseus.
I request elaboration.
The memes that were born out of that show.
Obi-Wan to the robot after he said Padme was dying.
It was like the Jennifer Lawrence meme. What do you mean? What do you mean? How did she die? It doesn't make
I request
sense.
Elaboration. Nope. You can't just walk out like that, robot. You got to tell me what's going on here. Man, what a wacky ending to that movie.
White Vision.
Don't call him White Vision.
Vashon?
Agatha all along?
Evan Peters was in that show.
He was.
Dog. This is going to be a fun one.
I'm excited. That's it.
What an era.
From me.
Careful, man.
This is hard.
Because you were going to call me Apollo Creed?
I was gonna say the Captain Cold of the podcast.
There are no strings on me.
God, he's good.
Thank you.
Wentworth Miller, everybody.
Yeah, he's actually here. That was him.
That was crazy. He popped in for that 2-second cameo, and then he left.
You're out of marshmallows. I checked.
What was he doing in that show?
I don't know.
He was on fire. Which is ironic because he was Captain Cold.
Come on, man. Get us out. We gotta go, man.
We do gotta go. All right, guys. We'll see you next week for WandaVision. I am super excited for that. Until then, goodbye.
Peace.